Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
Today's episode takes us to Richmond, Virginia. We're going to talk with the Director of Sales and Marketing for ASM Richmond. She's also the Regional Marketing Director of Theaters for ASM Global. Please welcome Brittany Herndon. Brittany, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are y'all?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. So I hear that y'all, are you originally from the South?
So I'm from Florida. I don't know if people from Florida would call it the South. There's that interesting difference there. But I grew up in Florida, moved to Virginia when I went to college, and was in a smaller market and just moved to Richmond about 3 years ago.
Well, we love the y'all. We use it quite often here in Kentucky as well. Your neighbors to the west.
Yeah, I'll say the Southern has rubbed off on me here. So it's a nice ad for the Southern hospitality from that Florida roughness, I'll call it.
You are, luckily enough, one of our very first guests from this part of the country. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing there in Richmond.
Yeah, so I work for ASM Global in Richmond, and we actually oversee 2 theaters in the market. So we have Altria Theater, which is about 3,600 seats, give or take. And then we also have Dominion Energy Center that has an 1,800 seat theater, more commonly known as Carpenter Theater here locally. So we've had both of those contracts for many years prior to me coming around in 2021. And so I oversee on the daily all of the marketing activities. I've got a team of 3 full-time marketers, and then I also oversee the premium sales and business development side of the business. And I have a team of 2 on that end in the premium area rather. And so we are rocking and rolling 24/7. Theaters alone with just 1 are usually, moving through a year pretty quick. And so with 2, it's quite a whirlwind. But we've been doing some great work here in the time that I've been here. We have some great staff, and we've been, really blessed to work with great promoters and great partners too. So we're just we're riding this high right now of just, being on the up. And so we're going to keep going that way, hopefully. But my time with ASM here, it's been about 3 years. I came from a smaller market. I opened up a theater in Lynchburg, Virginia, reopened from, it's at, I guess, empty for about 50 years. And so I was on a team that reopened this historic space down there. I kind of caught the bug for the theater business.
Yeah, as one does. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, 900 seats. I don't think it's quite for me. I want a bigger market. I'm not quite the LA or the New York girly, but I said, where's next? And Richmond was about 2.5 hours away. So.
When we were working with you and getting things set up, and you said you were kind of kicking off your season with Diana Ross.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for you to be kicking off a season?
Yeah. So, with theaters, you kind of have 2 busy areas, right? You've got the October to December time of year, and then you've got that, what I would call like March, April, May time of year. Most theaters are kind of down in the summer, and we have a very hefty Broadway season. So with that kind of in mind, that makes sense for us. But, we really see October as like our Super Bowl, but it's our Super Bowl every single day from now through December 31st. So
it's a never-ending Super Bowl.
Yeah, we've got something like, I counted it yesterday, just ticketed events, 90 events from yesterday through December 31st.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Sounds like
I'll stop complaining. I'll shut my mouth right now.
Cruel form of punishment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a whirlwind. But I think, if you can manage your schedule and if you're an organized marketer, really you can kind of take that and parse it out and it doesn't feel as crazy. There are still fires that pop up, but there's a lot more fun in the moments where you're going from show to show. And there's a lot of diversity in the programming. Like we might have Diana Ross, and then we have a musical about corn, and then we've got Sesame Street, and then we got Anthony Hamilton, and then, it's Rudolph on stage. And so there's a lot of hopping around there that keeps it fun and busy.
What is your all's for people that are not as familiar, not comfortable, for people that are not as familiar with Virginia? What is your all's place kind of in the market? You know, is Richmond the biggest city? Are there other theaters kind of in the area you all compete with, or do you kind of own the marketplace? You know, are there arenas? You know, what kind of give us the lay
Walk
of
us
the
through
land?
Richmond.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So Richmond is the capital of the state. And so I would say for the region, we are kind of per all of the standard industry reportings, we're the number one theater in the state. And when you look across arenas and stadiums, because the state doesn't have a stadium, I think it's a little bit nicer to say across both, but we don't have one. We're
sure.
still the number one venue. So in terms of gross ticket sales and number of tickets. So we've been kind of riding that for a while. We have some competition, I would say. We end up working, JPJ is one of our arenas in the ASM Global inventory, but I would say that because they are so close, about an hour and 15 away from us, and we have some pretty large titles sometimes that we can compete. But because we share the same parent company and we're all very friendly with each other, it's more of friendly competition than anything.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then when you're looking up or down the map between what I would call like the North Carolina region, like Charlotte and the Durham area that has DPAC, and then the Tanger Center, and then you look forward to DC where you've got the National Theater and a couple of others, I would say we compete more there in the region on this East Coast than we do in the state itself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is more broad, but what do you love about the theater industry? You know, I'm someone that previously was working at an arena and a theater and a convention center, which so I got to have a foot in each of those. But there is something uniquely special about being on the theater side. Obviously, you have a Broadway series. You know, many theaters have that, which is its own beast and very different than anything an arena would have. But it's a different experience. It's usually more intimate shows. Like, I don't know, it's kind of amazing. Like sometimes it really illustrates these like beautiful historic buildings often. So, what do you love about being at a theater? And obviously you came from one and then now you're at two others.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll add on to that the historic theater. Both of our venues were built in the 1920s, 1 year apart from each
Wow.
other. So we're almost on
Yeah.
100 years for both. And I came from Lynchburg, where the theater was built in 1905 and renovated and reopened in 2018. And being a part of, I think, that kind of storyline, where you're not only working in a theater where you do have, like you've mentioned, the intimate shows, right? You're a part of the groundwork that's laid for somebody to walk into this venue and have this wonderful experience, and you may be standing right next to them when they're sitting in a box and you can see that joy on their face. That definitely fuels me. There's a feeling when you're on an arena floor, but I think that in the theater, you can see those people's eyes light up. You can see their smiles, right? You can see them throw their hands in the air, right? They might scream too loud and hurt your ear, right? And in an arena, everybody's there. But when you add that layer of being a historic theater, um,
Yeah.
that's lived much longer than you have, right? And you're just a blip in history. Like the fact that my office is on the fourth floor of Altria Theater and I can walk 5 steps and hit a balcony seat, and how many people can say that in their life? Not only that they've kind of helped this dream live on that started 100 years ago, but that you're still getting people into these doors and you're living every single day within this venue. I mean, it's something magical, honestly. And I think it doesn't hurt that they're beautiful theaters, right? It doesn't hurt
Yeah.
that we get great shows. And so there's a lot of activity coming through in terms of foot traffic. But I mean, there's just something about that historic theater experience that I don't know that you'll get anywhere else.
Yeah. It's really almost this stewardship that you
Mhm.
don't often get at arenas because they haven't been around that long for the most part. A lot of arenas aren't that old. We have some stadiums that are a lot older, but yeah, the theaters, I mean, it's pretty wild. You talk to arenas and they're like, oh, some of our old shows in the 90s. And you talk to theaters and they're like, yeah, we had Harry Houdini back in the 20s or whatever. It's like the
Yeah.
names that you toss around are like, whoa, that is a long time ago. Like back when people were pulling their horse and buggies up to go to a show, not like,
Yeah.
back in the 70s or something. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, we actually have the craziest thing I think is in our history is that we've got a hallway that Elvis took this super famous picture in where he's kissing this girl right before a show.
I know that picture. I know that picture.
You know that picture,
What?
right? It's in our hallway
I've got to
on
Google it.
stage right, leading into backstage between where our Lexus lounge is and where our artists go to take the stage. And so we've got this, area. We don't even have a plaque there. It's wild. We have not commemorated this the right way, right? We should be building an entire campaign around Elvis here, but we've got, the photo laminated there in that spot, and people will come in and artists will recreate the picture with somebody by themselves, and they're just a part of this moment in time. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. I'm showing it on the screen. I know this is audio only, but that's awesome.
Yeah. And, for the Elvis lovers out there, or anybody who, just generally loves his music, that's such a cool, small piece of history that's Richmond specific and this theater specific. And I don't know, I feel like you just have to have been in venues that have lasted the length of time to be able to have those kind of stories.
And the way to celebrate those, right? I mean, we always feel like, there are only more hours in the day and the free time. And, but I do like your idea. And I think there's something for you to do there. That could be on the bucket list there for the theater. Yeah. I know your role extends kind of beyond just what you do there in Richmond. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with ASM Global.
Yeah, so I have been a regional marketing director with ASM Global almost for a year. I began back in March of 24, and two of our regional marketers were brought on specifically for the theaters, myself included, and then my colleague Alicia, who's over in Baton Rouge at the Raising Cane Center and the theater down there. And we were brought on specifically to help support our corporate Drew Grancelli, who's fantastic. I feel like you all know Drew from EVMC and a couple of other industry meetings, but he's really the leader for arenas, stadiums, and theaters on the corporate marketing end. And he found that because of the number of theater venues that we had and kind of the range of opportunities and challenges that they face, that him just as one guy, he was like, how do I tackle this? How do I be here for everyone? And so they hired us on as additional resources, and we split the theaters between the East Coast, the South, and then what we call like Drew's special cases. So either theaters that are coming on that have new employees that have never been in the industry before, or they've replaced their marketing director. Maybe somebody has left and they don't have a marketing person at all. He'll be able to help that venue. And then he has the venues like mine and Alicia's, who I would say are well established and larger in size than most of our other venues. So we really act in this role as a resource to those marketers. So I have about 20 venues on my list who know that they can call me day and night. They have a question about a contract, if they want to talk about something going on with one of their shows, if we want to brainstorm opportunities, ideas, they're going to reach out to myself or to Alicia or to Drew specifically, and they'll have somebody who's on that speed dial. And then on the other end, we're really there to kind of propel the business forward. So to think about how maybe theaters can take a bite out of what arenas are doing, and how they can also look at that cool thing that US Bank Stadium did for Taylor Swift and take one piece of it and, minimize it to this budget size and then do it at their theater, right?
Scale it down. Yeah,
exactly. And so having a team of marketers underneath Drew that both still work at venues, right? We're on the ground, we're in the day-to-day, but we also can help connect these theater marketers together, just continues to create this strong backbone for the marketers in general across the company, and also kind of brings all of our knowledge, our skills, and our opportunities into one house where people can share and then grow together. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy to say that, with me having my East Coast girlies, I have a couple of guys who are with me, but it's a lot of East Coast girlies. We also share a lot of the same routing, so it's nice to be able to say, hey, I've got Sesame Street too. What worked for you? What didn't? Dogman's coming up. Dogman the musical is big right now. So
Dogman the musical.
I know. Isn't that crazy thinking about that? I wish there was a Captain Underpants the musical.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, we'll bring it back. But it's nice to be able to have those same kind of calls that the stadiums and arenas are doing on their Sabrina Carpenter tours or their Taylor Swift tours, and kind of have a big area where we can brain share and come together to kind of emulate and imitate, I would say, is really helpful too. So.
And I think, as almost everyone knows too, theaters often are catching artists on the way up, and they're catching them also on the way down. Maybe not even on the way down, but like, a lot of these like legacy acts will be like, I'm going to scale down and do intimate acoustic tour, or, things like, it's kind of amazing that
there's not as popular as they used to be too.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of it.
It's both, but it is, I think, uniquely situated to kind of have like a really wide mix of artists on various points of their career. Whereas arenas, to play an arena or a stadium, you really have to achieve a certain and sustain a certain height. Whereas theaters, I think it allows these up and comers, and then they may go on to play a U.S. Bank stadium later or something,
Yeah.
but they started off in Richmond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to add on to that too, theaters often have less time to prepare for a tour coming and less money to work with. So, I think the key thing that we all know is that theaters are working with less and have more pressure on them to sell because, like you said, artists are either on their way up or they're on their way down, right? Or sometimes you get that crazy Diana Ross show and it's right there for you to take advantage of and take a breath. But that's kind of the goal, is to be able to bring everyone together in a place where there's enough resources to kind of help idea share, help grow, pitch new things, right? Try out things, even if they don't work, and to have more people within the company to be able to go to when you want to talk about any of that. So it's a really neat program, and I'm really honored to be asked to be a part of it just 3 years into my career with ASM as well. And I think that I learn more often from my marketers in my zone than I tell them. Half the time I'm just saying, yeah, that's what I would do. Why are we calling right now? Like, you've got this.
They just need an emotional support person to lean on.
Don't we all,
Right.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
Walk us through, because it's a lot. So I know there's no such thing as an average day, but walk us through an average day for you. How much time are you spending in the office versus working late for shows? What do you do? Walk us through the process?
Yeah. So I would say on a show day, if I am planning to attend that show full force, we've got the entire team out. I'm probably coming in around the same time, maybe 30 minutes later than usual. I'm in every morning by 8:30. And that's by my own design. I am definitely a morning person. I need to come in and hit my emails and get my life together and then go from there. Right. And then, I think the daily life in the office for me, because I'm really focused on kind of like large picture items here. I'm focused on my staff, supporting them, and the next strategies. I'm spending a lot of time at the desk. But when we get to showtime, it's kind of all hands on deck. So 2 hours before doors, we're running around the venue. We're making sure that all of our screens are up. Anything that we're activating is good to go, right? All of our posters outside are looking good. And then we're kind of just ready to rock. As doors open, we've got some of our staff members covering that. So we're not only grabbing like, here's where merch is, and don't forget to get your popcorn, but we're also trying to find something fun to latch onto that engages patrons. So for Shucked, which is a musical about corn, if you haven't heard about it, it's very interesting. It's corn, right? So for Shucked, we ended up doing a photo op outside the venue. We put a 25-foot inflatable corn on the marquee for like the last 3 weeks. Every single day it went. And then we brought in a vintage tractor and we set up some hay bales and we set up some corn shucks, and we kind of put that all together for people to engage with. So we spent a lot of time manning that, right? So we're kind of sitting there ready to take people's pictures, ready to take pictures of them taking pictures, and just engage with people to see what kind of content we can use to then kind of rinse and repeat for later on in that show. And then once we get to showtime, I think, as you know, with arenas and stadiums, people are up and down. You can kind of go in and out of the show. But with theaters, it's like the lights come down. You can't walk through that venue or all eyes are going to be on you, right? There's not a lot of aisles with historic theaters, not a lot of places you can hide in there. So we really tend, unless we're covering content wise, shooting the show, having a house photographer, we really tend to just go in and kind of enjoy. We'll sit in the box and, watch a couple of minutes of the show, kind of take a look at the crowd, kind of bring that in. And then most of the time we're gone probably an hour into the show, unless you are kind of planning to do anything post-event, papering the egress, things like that. But it's interesting because I feel like the show day for a theater marketer isn't as what people would say like flashy as like maybe a stadium or an arena, but I feel like we have so much more freedom to do things in and out of the weeks and in preparation for these shows that I find that that's where I have the most like flashy fun in my job. Like we've got the Insidious Further You Fear horror experience.
I heard about that. I've been reading about that. That sounds really interesting.
It's like, imagine if you like scary movies, imagine you're going into like a 4D experience, but people are, really right next to you, jumping out at you. It's like the Shrek Universal ride, except it's like in a theater and it's Insidious and there are demons. So very interesting, right? So we got that show in a split second, and they said, "What can you do with the red door?" And we, in that split second, said, "Well, we've got the Bird Theater down here who does movie screenings, and I wonder if they'll run Insidious, and we can paint a red door and we can put a QR code on it and we can get people to get intrigued by what that is. They'll go see the movie, and then we'll give them the heads up on the pre-sale before everybody else." And that was in like 3 days of time, right? Whereas like arenas or stadiums with a tour that's larger, like a Taylor Swift or a Sabrina Carpenter, you're probably going through approvals for weeks on end to do something. I can flip a red door in 5 minutes, right? And we've got the yes to go. So
it's true. There's a little more like freedom sometimes of just like, what can we do? And let's go for it. And it's not there's not quite as many layers, which sometimes can prevent challenges. Sometimes you have a great idea and 6 people above you are like, nah.
Yeah. There's always somebody who's like, I don't know if I want to go to take that risk. And that's always, yeah.
That's why you always ask for forgiveness.
Right.
Like, no.
Well, and we understand that, right? Like brand control is very important.
Totally.
But,
Yeah.
As the guy who hosted opening night for Sabrina Carpenter's tour, I can tell you, you're absolutely right.
Yep. And she put on a heck of a show, right? I mean,
it was
all
amazing.
worth protecting. But there is that fun of being able to kind of move quick and fast, and like you just said, ask for forgiveness later. And that's where I think we have the best days here at Alpha.
How do you, because it's a challenge for us, when we've got 30 events in 3 months as opposed to 90, right? But how do you balance how much time you spend on micro marketing? And what I mean by that is, somebody calls up and they say, "Hey, we really have this little idea. We want you to go to the library and the school," and you kind of think, okay, that's going to move 12 tickets. How about we spend $1,000 in Target? So how much time are you spending? How do you decide how much time you're going to spend on those little things versus the big marketing efforts, which, can be move the needle really for a theater event too?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think that's the question of the day every day, right? It's everybody always wants to move that next ticket, right? And unless you're a venue that can sell out every single show, you're going to have that question come to you more often than not. And I think for me, what I've learned is that I'm going to get asked to do a lot of things, right? Our market is going to get asked to do a lot of things. And the better you are at working with your promoters and promoting these shows that are coming through your doors, the more people will know that you're willing to go the extra mile, the more you get asked on top of that, right? It's like the rule of being really great at your job means that you
get punished for doing well. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that I've created a relationship with our promoters, and my team has done really well to kind of follow in these footsteps of, if we are going to say, okay, but yes, we could do this, but how do you think about this? Or what would you consider doing this instead? Those promoters and those tours are going to trust that we're asking for a reason, and we can back up the data behind why we would suggest something different. And we've also spent a lot of time really getting to know the market and what works on the ground and what doesn't. So Richmond it's come into this era where posters are back, right? So if you said, "Brittany, can we go poster?" I'd say, heck yes, absolutely. We're going to hit these places and these places, and here are the people I'm going to ask, and here's how much it's going to cost, right? And I'll be able to kind of wash, rinse, repeat that. But we've also figured out kind of what doesn't work in our market, and we've spent a lot of time creating larger partnerships with businesses and organizations and different channels, marketing channels like influencer wise, and local guides to be able to push those messages in a different way. So, you mentioned libraries for Dogman, which is a book series, right? It would make sense for us to go into the libraries. And when we go into the libraries, the ask isn't just, how can I get posters there? It's, can we do a live reading of Dogman on this day at this time? And can we then push this out on our channels through email? And then everybody that goes gets this flyer, and it's a deal off with a percentage off of your ticket, right? And so it's about that like yes and model of how do we go even farther, so it's no longer a piddly ask, right?
Yep.
It's a much larger initiative that that you can then move towards with, and also copy and paste in your other markets as well too.
It is tricky. It is that is always the challenge, right? And to understand when the juice is worth the squeeze, right?
That's exactly
like,
it, yeah.
oh, it's
Right.
going to be my whole team out here for 6 hours, and we're going to sell 2 tickets. I don't know, but we can stop by this one, whatever it is, realtor or whatever it is, I don't know, and do a promotion with them and do this, and it's going to take 1 or 2 of us, and then it might yield this, and also get exposure and PR and other things out of it. But that's always the tricky rub, is like, is this going to be worth it? And you're also, of course, weighing. I'm basically being my own therapist right now, but like, yeah, you're also weighing then, like, sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but in the grand scheme, is it worth
That's
it
always
for
a-
the building
you're
the
not wrong.
relationship with the promoter, right? Because then you're like, I'll
Right.
do this silly thing that they're wanting me to do, even though I know it's not going to go anywhere. But then guess what? I have this crazy idea on another show I have with them, and best bet that I'm going to leverage that and make sure that they, understand it. So yeah, it's a lot of factors.
Yeah, and I think that we've also had an interesting development in our market where sometimes we will pitch the small things that will get kicked back on, of like, oh, well, I don't know if we should put our time here, or I don't know if this is going to really move tickets in this way. And we'll kind of push on, hey, no, this is worth going to because X, Y, and Z, and this is going to pay off because these eyeballs will then talk to those eyeballs, right? And somehow we've converted 200 tickets over something that you didn't have to touch and my team handled. So it's always, like you said, what's worth doing? How do you measure where you're going after the big initiatives, and where do the small initiatives actually end up paying off? And 2, I think time management is just so important. And that is all a part of this conversation is, if you can plan so that you're always thinking about ticket sales from the minute a show hits until the minute that it goes out the door, then you also get asked to do less of those last minute requests, because you're probably more on top of tickets throughout the lifetime of a show. And with 90 events in 2 months, that's hard to do, but
Yeah.
maybe with 40 events you can kind of keep track and also tie initiatives together too. We do
Yeah,
a
you
lot
only
of
have
that.
40 events, Dave. Keep on top of it. Come on.
Right? I know. I'm so lazy. So
What
lazy.
the heck?
Brittany, let me take you back a few years, back to 2010, and you're a freshman at Sweetbriar College. What are you thinking you're going to do with your life?
Oh, so I went into school. That's wild. Did I tell you guys that, or did you dig up info on me?
We have people. We have sources.
She's shifting her eyes right now. So how much do I want to talk about my college days?
Yeah. So yeah, I left Florida, good old Florida, went to Virginia with my flip-flops and my light jacket, was not prepared. And I walked in wanting to be a film composer. And so I
Wow, that's
went,
very specific.
yeah, I've loved film in movies for a very long time. And I've always felt a connection to music. I played trumpet since I was in 4th grade. I went through the marching band. I've done everything there. And so I walked in and I went into Music Theory 1, and I was there for about a week, and I was like, oh, that's not for me. This is going to be a no. We're going to
You
keep
figured it out quick though.
Yeah, I was like, we'll enjoy it from afar. Like, it's just, this is not going to be
So
it.
when you figure out, like, I love this, but maybe I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it was that
the
moment.
difference
It was
between
like,
having an appreciation for it and do I want to go to this many classes and learn how to do this?
yeah, there's another way that I can be a part of that music experience, right? And
Sure.
so I moved into a business degree, and that was probably the best decision I've made in my entire life. And I learned from a lot of really fantastic professors at Sweetbriar. It's such a small place, but you got such a personalized education. It was just, I was not a number in a 200-person biolab class. At some points, I was one of 3 people in a classroom. And so I walked out of that of school with an offer from my dean of my business school, who actually asked me to work for him. And I went into operations for a startup company in the medical field, which I also knew nothing about. And from there, my life story is very interesting, but, ended up going into a couple of different marketing roles and fell into the job at the Academy Center of the Arts in Lynchburg, just kind of by knowing the right people and having a good reputation for really understanding marketing strategy and events. And I worked there for about 5 years until I came over to ASM. But to say I started in, music theory and ended in entertainment doesn't sound like a crazy ride, but to add in the couple of notches in between, it's definitely a lot of swerving to get to where I am today.
I wouldn't be doing my job because Paul went from the arena side to now he's kind of in the Parks and Rec world for a little bit. So you had some time with the city of Lynchburg doing a marketing as part of the Parks and Rec team there. So what did you
Let's
take
go
from
Parks and Recreation.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you take from that you use in the job today?
Parks and Rec was such a fun time. And I think that role really got me back into my love for event marketing. Being able to kind of take that, let's sell tickets, like let's get butts in seats, let's get people to events, right? Whether they're, ticketed, they're free, right? They're a movie in the park, or it's a food truck Friday and you're just hoping that 1,000 people show up. It was such a fast-paced role. There was a lot of red tape. I'm sure anybody who's worked with the city, has known that it's very hard to get through the red tape there. So I learned a lot about how to kind of keep moving your idea forward through multiple layers of approvals and processes and departments. I've kept that with me. That's been very helpful. But just really kind of understanding how to market an event in the market you live in, knowing that you are also a constituent of that city, knowing that you have friends and families that live there, and you have a network of people that you can learn from. That was, really helpful. And I think, with Parks and Rec, I also had a really fantastic boss that I started under. She was about my age when she hired me as a graphic designer part-time. And she taught me a lot about what is worth doing now so that it pays off later. We talked about kind of, is the juice worth the squeeze? She was really someone who modeled making smart decisions and making sure that you were also always thinking forward and also taking care of people too. And I think that kind of trio of life lessons that I took from my girl, Ashley Kirshner, has turned me into who I am today and probably propelled me into this industry a little bit faster than I would have been able to get in if I hadn't had learned that from her. But generally, I also think Parks and Rec taught me that I love being in a service industry around people. And I think that there's a lot of joy that you get of being a part of a role like that. And I think that still lives in entertainment and fuels me every single day.
Yeah, and you're still also, from that initial thing, like you said, you're still connected with music and entertainment. And so I think it's funny how our paths wind around and are so very often not linear and in fact almost better when they're not, because it's like we pick up all these little things along the way and learn little bits from different industries or different roles and then pull them with us to the next challenge. But there's also usually through lines. So like, the fact that you have kind of stayed in events and stayed in music or music adjacent, maybe not the medical thing, but like, the other things, it's like there's, it's kind of clearly you're still like, having that interest and that love of that type of, entertainment and connection with people, which I think, is the root of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also tell you a lot about the spine if you want to know at any point. So call me up if you've got back problems. So
there you go.
So then what was it that, took you, to that next position out of Parks and Rec and into the theater world?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the my boss there that I spoke about, Ashley, was married to the executive director of the Academy Center of the Arts. He had been recently hired. I think at that point, he was maybe 2-3 years in. And he had known me just from me working under his wife. And we had been a part of a social circle for a while. I would say we were more acquaintances at that point. He was always someone that I looked up to as the guy that you wanted to be, right? Or the person you wanted to be. And so one day he called me up and he said, "Hey, let's have coffee." And I said, "I don't drink coffee, but I'll have a Diet Coke. Let's meet." And he just said, he was looking for someone to come into the organization at a time where they were really at the tail end of this construction project to reopen this theater. They were running a warehouse theater space that was essentially a black box meets standing room venue. They also had arts classes, they had outreach programs, they had galleries. It was like the best of all of the worlds that I loved, and I jumped at it. And so I walked into that role right before they were about to kick off an outdoor music concert series that was offsite of their venue, with a capacity of like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And so I ran into the summer headfirst with that. And that was my first experience of like large scale band, large scale outdoor concert series. And then I continued to ride that as we reopened that theater. And I stayed with that team for about 5 years, through the pandemic until right near the end of 2021. But, Jeff really saw the light and the spark in me, not only just, being good at the job, but he also, had been an attendee at these events that I had marketed and I had been a part of. He had brought, his friends and family to these things that Ashley and I had done together and worked on together. He had gotten my, 10,000 page program book for the new Parks and Rec season that I had sweat and cried over at night. So he saw that and he knew my interests, and he took a chance on me in that moment. And I think he gave me one of the best opportunities I've ever had to kick open the door into this industry. And I'm super thankful for that. And I think working in a organization like that, also a nonprofit, teaches you a lot about being able to manage budgets and think smart about money and think smart about your time, right? And also build programs from the ground up that really means something to someone. And it's not just about selling tickets. And those are things today that help me in what I do here in this organization, even though I'm not any longer in a nonprofit, but I'm still in the arts. Yeah, the Academy Center of the Arts is a fantastic venue. It's beautiful and gorgeous. And I was blessed to start there. And I still have gorgeous venues, but, even more intimate as a 900 seat theater it's interesting to be a part of that on show day and see that kind of play out as well.
So after nearly 4.5 years with the Academy Center of the Arts, you make that jump and move from Lynchburg to Richmond. So tell me about that move and how that all came about.
Yeah. So the pandemic was rough. I'm sure we all talk about it all the time. It feels like it was ages ago now, which is crazy, but I was thankful enough working for the Academy that I did not lose my job. Most of our employees also didn't. We were very thankful to be able to kind of move through that period of uncertainty, but still have our roles in hand. And I think there's a lot of soul searching for me at that time. The world stopped and we kind of had to ask ourselves, if we're not doing this, then what are we doing? And I think that I very easily could have said, I'm going to walk out of entertainment and events because it's unstable. I don't know when this will happen again. Or I could have said, no, this is what I want to do, and let's figure out the next step. And that's actually where I leaned. So I knew I wanted to move out of the small market that I was in. I felt like I had kind of outgrown the area and I was looking for something a little bit larger. Again, not a New York, not in LA, but Richmond is perfect. And I was also looking for kind of that next foot in the door of, I'm not going to go from here to SoFi Stadium, but where can I go next? And I kept my eyes open for jobs across the industry. I was looking for jobs with promoters. I was looking at jobs with venues that didn't have a management company. And somehow I ran across a marketing manager job here. And I applied for it and said, oh, they probably will never look at me. Let's see what happens. And 4 weeks later, I had moved, sold a house for cash in Lynchburg, moved into a place here, and was starting my first day. And that was August of 2021. And again, just the right people at the right time, taking a chance on me, coming from a much smaller market with 900 seats to 3,600 and 1,800 is a lot. But they saw kind of the skill set that I had that was applicable. And I got lucky, and here I am today. And so I had the marketing manager role for probably about a year. And then my director decided to leave the industry. And I guess I was, good enough to keep on, because here we are. But I was able to, I think make some very serious impact during that first year because of how I took my nonprofit mindset and turned it over here. And I think that was extremely helpful to be able to kind of apply those like penny pinching, let's think about all the ways we can do this model in a much larger space.
What are you seeing in the industry as a trend as we have kind of come out of that? The last couple of years have obviously seen a gold rush, and now things are kind of slowing down in some spots. But what are you seeing there in Richmond?
Yeah, we're really thankful in Richmond that we, number one, have a really fantastic director of booking who has definitely done her time in the industry and made a wealth of connections and kept those relationships very positive, that people tend to come to Richmond because they love the experience, not only for their artists, but the experience that the venue gives, which is a wonderful reputation to have. So we've seen a little bit of a pullback, I would say, but I don't know that Richmond itself is in a place where we're kind of worrying that like gold rush is coming back as much. But I will say that I think right now and across the board, I think people are being tighter on their money right now than they ever have been. And I think that they are buying later than they ever have been, no matter what kind of genre of presentation you're kind of talking about, right? We knew that for some concerts and maybe for some comedy that people are going to buy late, and walk-ups were a thing. But we're also seeing that in our family shows, and we're seeing that in our Broadway shows, and we're seeing that even in our A-list shows, where we normally would have seen a pre-sale sellout. We're still looking at 200, 300 tickets open day of show, and they're closing, but they're not closing as fast as they used to.
We're seeing very similar to what we're seeing here.
Yeah. And I think that that's important to be able to kind of take into mind as you're thinking through your ad plans and kind of where your expectations are on the buyer end too, because I can say the same thing for myself, and you're right. Like, I'm not going to plan something for this Saturday. It's only Tuesday. And I think that mindset is definitely more common than it used to be.
Yeah.
Scare some people who are hoping to sell some tickets very fast. But I think it's also good to understand if your market is that way, because you can calm nerves and also make smart decisions around those type of understandings.
Yeah. So obviously very busy schedule. Tell us about the home life. You got a wife, Liz. How'd you guys meet?
Yeah. So this is, the tale of the millennials. We met on Tinder. And I was in Lynchburg, and she was about an hour away, and she was working for a cowboy sports outdoor arena. And so we had a similar kind of lifestyle, but very different experiences. And so we were long distance for quite a bit, about 6 months. And then we moved to Richmond together in 2021. But Liz and I got married. We actually got married on the Dominion Energy Center stage. So our wedding was at the venue.
Very cool.
It was, the perfect way to get great marketing material is to have your wedding at your venue. Right?
Are you thinking through that on wedding day? Where you're like, we really need something from the seating bowl, and
Oh yeah, the shot list was huge. And then she also works in events, so she works at a local hotel, a boutique hotel, who happens to sell weddings, and so somehow she also got us into the Richmond Weddings magazine as a spread, and so the whole wedding is basically a write-off. So it works out.
Yeah, absolutely, that's great.
But Liz and I have been together. We just had our first wedding anniversary, and
congratulations.
So we're, living the life in Richmond with 2 dogs, and, it's lovely because we both have the same event kind of schedule. So we're able to kind of really balance life.
I was going to ask, how are you finding that work-life balance these days? Are you taking care of yourself?
Oh, yeah. And it's nice because we'll be able to, she'll work a Saturday, I'll work a Sunday. We can both take off Monday. So that flexibility is awesome.
That's great.
Whereas I think, if anybody has a partner who isn't in the industry, I think they can definitely feel that, 90 events in 2.5 months pressure. So
yes.
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up here, I want to hit you with our fast five. It's just 5 quick questions, just looking for your short, immediate response. First up, do you remember your very first concert?
Yeah, it was Slightly Stupid when I was 13.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Do you have a favorite concert or show?
Oh, yes, I do. Hands down, I saw Taylor Swift in Tampa last April, and it was the most fantastic show, production, audience experience wise I've ever been to. It was a phenomenon.
How about a favorite film score for your movie roots?
So
taking
glad
you
you
back.
asked this.
Yeah. What's your favorite film score?
That's hard. I'm gonna have to say the first Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Have you seen the John Williams documentary? This isn't one of the 5, but the John Williams documentary on Disney Plus is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's on my list. He's a national hero to me. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, here's an easy one. Who's your favorite dog, Pepper or Ruby?
Oh, you can't do that to me. That's like a favorite child. It's wrong.
What kind of dogs do you have?
We've got 2 mini long-haired dachshunds. Pepper is 7 and Ruby is 4 months old.
Oh wow, 4 months.
So I'm gonna
old.
have to say Pepper because she's, my long time girl. I can't do her dirty with the puppy.
Last question. What's your theme song? TV cameras follow you around while you do what you do, and what's the song that plays over the opening credits to the Brittany Herndon show?
I'm gonna have to use my Serenity song, which is Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield.
Nice.
It's just a bop, right?
It is.
The rest is still unwritten. It's all in front of you, right?
I love it.
Opportunities are endless.
There you go.
On that note, before we let you go, anything you want to plug? Where can people find out about, if they want to reach out to you or check out your venues? Where do they go?
Yeah, I would say best option for me is to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm basically glued to that app all day long. And then for venues, we've got Altria Theater. We're across Instagram, TikTok, and our website is altriatheater.com. And the same for Dominion Energy Center. We've got both channels plus Facebook for both. And then that website is dominionenergycenter.com. And we've got a lot of things coming up, a full schedule, like I've mentioned a few times. But, I'm always open for anyone that wants to idea share. That's really, really important to me in this industry is kind of being able to share what you're doing, how you're doing it, and learn from others. And I think imitation is flattery. So, slide into my DMs, let me know what you want to kind of collab on. And I'm open to anyone reaching out. So.
Love that. Brittany, thank you so much for your time today. It was great learning about you and a little bit about Richmond and all your fun you're having there.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was great, and really looking forward to seeing you guys in Atlanta, right?
Won't be too long. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
I can't wait.
Thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. We'd love to see you at EVMC 2025 in Atlanta. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews so you can help others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.